Billionaire CEO spent Christmas with his mistress, then discovered his wife did the unthinkable. Elena, please, just tell me where you are. We can fix this. Damien Archer's voice cracked, raw with a sudden, devastating fear he hadn't felt since he was a child. He stood paralyzed in their vast, silent master bedroom, the phone pressed against his ear like a drowning man clutching a flimsy life preserver. The room, usually a sanctuary, felt cavernous and mocking. There was a long, cold pause, a silence heavy with years of unspoken grievance. Then her voice cut through, unervingly calm and devastatingly final. Fix this? You spent Christmas morning with her, Damien, while your children waited for you. While Wyatt, our quiet, sensitive son, asked me why Daddy didn't want to open presents with us. While Iris cried because you promised you'd be here to see the big Santa surprise. You don't get to fix this. You broke it completely, and I'm done being the only one trying to hold the shattered pieces together. Where are the kids? Elena, please. I need to see them. I need to explain. Her laugh was soft, a brittle sound that contained centuries of bitterness. Nothing like the warm, genuine sound he remembered from their early years. Explain what? That your mistress was more important than your family? That your carefully constructed web of lies mattered more than their Christmas? No, Damien. The only thing you need to do now is sign the papers my lawyer is sending. We're not coming back. And you need to understand something crucial before you try to fight this. You didn't lose us today. You lost us months ago, possibly years. You were just too busy building your empire to even notice the disappearance of your own life. The line went dead with a soft, final click. Damien Archer, billionaire CEO, master manipulator of the financial universe, the man whose word moved markets, collapsed onto the polished oak floor of his empty Briarcliff Heights mansion and understood for the first time in his meticulously controlled life what it truly meant to have absolutely nothing of value left. Before we delve further into Damien's spiraling descent, let us pause to reflect on the nature of this particular failure. Here at Mr. Stevens Stories, we chronicle the powerful, emotional narratives that remind us what truly matters beyond the balance sheet. If you appreciate confronting real stories with real, unavoidable consequences, stories that make you examine your own priorities, we urge you to subscribe right now. Your commitment helps this channel grow, enabling us to continue bringing you content that makes you think, feel, and perhaps even inspires necessary change. Your support means everything as we navigate these complex human truths. Now, let's go back to where this all began. A place where the scent of baking cinnamon hung thick in the air, masking the sharper odor of lies. Damien Archer stood rigid at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his Harbor Point penthouse, 50 floors above the city's hushed Christmas morning. He watched idle snowflakes dissolve instantly against the cold glass. The city, sprawling beneath him in the pre-dawn darkness, was a tapestry of glittering, cold Christmas lights, an electric promise of warmth he hadn't sought. Behind him, Sienna moved through the sleek, minimalist kitchen, a light, unfamiliar tune escaping her lips. She wore one of his shirts, crisp white Egyptian cotton that fell just to her upper thighs. Nothing else. The first slivers of Christmas morning light painted her skin a soft, ethereal gold. He should have felt something powerful. Surging desire, deep satisfaction, the addictive thrill that had compelled him to bypass his own life and drive across the bridge to this alternate reality. Instead, there was only a profound, heavy numbness, like concrete setting in his veins. Coffee? Sienna's voice floated over, warm and utterly uncomplicated, the exact opposite of his home life. Please, Damien replied, his voice flat. His own reflection stared back at him in the dark glass. The face of a man who routinely commanded Fortune 500 boardrooms, whose signature authorized multi-million-dollar transactions, whose image frequently graced magazine covers under headlines like "The Architect of Modern Finance." But the man in the window looked gaunt, hollowed out by his own choices. His phone vibrated relentlessly on the cold marble counter, an insistent buzzing against the silence. Another message from Elena. The notification banner flashed across the screen. Wyatt is asking for you. It's Christmas morning. He did not open it. He hadn't opened any of her messages since yesterday afternoon, when he'd texted her some tired, instantly forgettable excuse about an emergency board call that required his presence out of town. She'd finally stopped responding after the third desperate, transparent lie. That sudden, absolute silence from her should have been his first alarm bell. It wasn't. Not then. Sienna returned, handing him coffee in a weighty ceramic mug he didn't recognize, deliberately allowing her fingers to brush against his hand with a practiced slowness meant to ignite sensation. "You're distracted," she observed, tilting her perfectly sculpted head with a look of well-rehearsed concern. "Just thinking about Q4 projections," he lied smoothly, the lie tasting like ash. She laughed, a light, musical sound, completely unburdened by the crushing weight of broken promises or the demands of parental duty. "It's Christmas, Damien. Even masters of the universe are allowed to rest." But rest required a clear conscience, a luxury Damien hadn't possessed in years. They had met at the Peton Foundation annual winter ball 8 months prior. A black tie affair awash in overpriced champagne, the kind of gathering where the ultra-wealthy congratulated themselves for writing tax-deductible checks. Sienna Cross had been standing near the silent auction tables, stunningly elegant in emerald silk that perfectly complemented the sharp green of her eyes. She was 28. He was 42, trapped in the rigidity of his life. She worked in acquisitions at Meridian Capital, a rival firm. She spoke 3 languages fluently, possessed a razor-sharp intellect, and knew exactly when to offer a challenging observation versus when to laugh at his jokes. Enough challenge to keep him interested, enough deference to feed his ego. She'd approached him first, bypassing the layers of assistants and gatekeepers. "Damien Archer, I've been wanting to meet you." He should have walked away instantly. Should have mentioned the wife, the children, the complex, messy life waiting for him back in Briarcliff Heights. Instead, he'd heard himself say, "The pleasure, Miss Cross, is entirely mine." And in that moment, he truly meant it. What began as high-level professional conversation seamlessly morphed into something personal. One drink became 2. Phone numbers were exchanged. A lunch meeting to discuss potential collaboration became dinner. Dinner became late-night, hushed phone calls from his study. And those calls inevitably led to anonymous hotel rooms and elaborate, increasingly necessary lies. Sienna fit neatly into the precise spaces Elena had slowly stopped filling. Or, at least, that's the narrative Damien constantly told himself. Sienna represented late, uncomplicated dinners, after-midnight conference calls, and weekend getaways disguised as urgent business trips to Zurich or Tokyo. She offered the kind of raw, uncomplicated desire that didn't come packaged with grocery lists, pediatrician appointments, and the utter, demanding exhaustion of raising 6-year-old twins. Elena had given him everything once. Her career as a promising, award-winning architect had been willingly abandoned when the twins arrived. Her beautiful, athletic body had been transformed by the sacrifices of pregnancy. Her trust had been offered freely, wholly, until he'd slowly, methodically, drained it away like water from a reservoir. He clung to the convenient lie that she'd grown distant first, that motherhood had consumed her, transforming the vibrant woman he'd married into a stranger who smelled perpetually of powdered formula and exhaustion, rather than the subtle jasmine perfume she used to wear. But standing here now, surrounded by the alien perfection of another woman's space, Damien felt the cold, hard truth creeping up his spine. He hadn't reacted to her distance. He had engineered it. He'd pushed her away deliberately, systematically, making space for Sienna, until Elena had finally, exhausted, stopped fighting to hold on to him. "I should go," he announced abruptly, setting down the untouched coffee. Sienna's perfectly formed smile faltered, just for a second. "It's Christmas. I know." He was already reaching for his clothes, his custom shirt, his tailored pants, reconstructing the impenetrable armor of his public self. I need to check on something." Her expression shifted instantly, the disappointment hardening into something sharp, perceptive, and knowing. "You mean someone?" Damien didn't respond. What could he say that wouldn't sound like the exact, pathetic cowardice it was? "She's never going to be enough for you. You know that," Sienna said quietly, watching him button his collar. Your wife, that domestic life, you're not built for it, Damien. You're built for this. For ambition. For more. He paused, his hand gripping the cold brass handle of the exit door. Maybe that's the problem, he murmured, and then he left. The drive from Harbor Point back to Briarcliff Heights took 40 minutes. 40 minutes of silence broken only by his phone's persistent buzzing. Messages from his assistant, hollow holiday greetings from business associates. A reminder about the January board retreat. Nothing, absolutely nothing, from Elena. That deep, resonant silence grew louder and more terrifying with every mile he covered. The Archer estate sat behind imposing wrought iron gates, appearing pristine and cruelly cold in the pale winter morning light. Snow blanketed the circular driveway, perfectly untouched, except for one single set of tire tracks, fresh and deep, leading determinately away from the house. Damien's chest tightened into a paralyzing knot as he parked and approached the immense front door. His key turned in the lock, but the house that greeted him felt profoundly wrong the moment he crossed the threshold. Too quiet. Elena? His voice, usually authoritative, was swallowed immediately by the marble foyer, echoing hollowly into the silent wings of the mansion. No response, no sound of small, running feet, no twins shouting, "Daddy's home!" the way they used to before he'd started coming home less and less often. The main living room was unnaturally immaculate. There was no festive chaos. No bright shreds of wrapping paper scattered across the antique Persian rugs. No discarded toys. No evidence that young, vibrant children lived here at all. The towering Christmas tree they decorated, or rather, that Elena had decorated while he'd answered urgent emails, 2 weeks ago stood dark and silent in the corner, its lights lifeless. Panic began not as a shout, but as a cold whisper circulating in his blood. Elena! Wyatt! Iris! He took the grand staircase 2 steps at a time, his heart slamming against his ribs like a trapped bird. Their master bedroom was empty. The bed was made with cold, hotel-like precision. The twins' room was also empty, the toys organized with unnatural, photographic care. Then he saw it. On the dresser in their bedroom, a single, cream-colored envelope bearing his name in Elena's familiar, careful handwriting. His hands shook uncontrollably as he tore it open. Damien, by the time you read this, we will be gone. I'm not telling you where. I'm not asking for a conversation. I am simply done. You chose her. You have been choosing her, or someone like her, or your career, which amounts to the same thing, for longer than I had the courage to admit. You chose late meetings and weekend conferences and the expensive, glossy lie of a life that looked perfect from the outside. I chose our children. I chose my sanity. I chose to stop disappearing slowly while you pretended not to notice the vanishing act. The twins asked where you were this morning. Wyatt wanted desperately to wait to open presents. Iris made you a card. It's in your office desk drawer, though you probably won't find it for weeks, if ever. I didn't have an answer for them. Not one that wouldn't shatter their small hearts a little more. So we left. Don't look for us. Don't send lawyers or investigators or money. We are not a problem you can solve with the tools that built your empire. We are just the family you forgot you had. Elena. The letter slipped from his nerveless fingers, drifting silently to the floor like the dead snow outside. Damien stood frozen in the center of a house that had been meticulously maintained, but had never truly been a home, surrounded by the devastating evidence of a life he had carelessly destroyed. He thought, fleetingly, of Sienna's penthouse. The warm, easy coffee, the undemanding intimacy. Then he thought of Elena's face, the last time he had truly looked at her, which he realized had been months, maybe a year ago. He had stopped seeing the intelligent, vibrant woman he'd married and started seeing only the heavy obligations she represented. He thought of Wyatt's earnest, quiet laugh, of Iris's tiny, trusting hand in his, of the bedtime stories he had stopped reading, the school events he had consistently ignored. His phone buzzed. A text from Sienna. You left your watch. Should I keep it warm for you? Damien deleted it without opening the message chain. He walked slowly to his home office, a room he spent more time in than anywhere else in the house, a sterile environment of cold steel and expensive leather. His desk was organized, functional, and utterly cold. He opened the bottom drawer. There, resting atop a stack of neatly categorized confidential files, was a handmade card. Construction paper folded crudely in half, crayon drawings vibrant on the front. It depicted 4 stick figures holding hands. Mommy, Daddy, me, Wyatt. The figures were all smiling broadly. All except Daddy, whose stick figure face was purposefully turned away from the group. Inside, in Iris's careful, 6-year-old handwriting. Asterisk, Dear Daddy, I miss you. Mommy says you are working hard for us. I made this so you remember we love you. Merry Christmas. Love, Iris. Something fundamental broke inside him. A shattering moment that no amount of money or professional success could ever repair. He didn't just feel sadness. He felt a physical, wrenching despair. Damien collapsed into his oversized executive chair and wept. Not the quiet tears of a weary man, but deep, racking sobs of ultimate failure. But if you've ever made a choice you couldn't take back, you know tears don't actually fix anything. They are just the body's agonizing response to a truth the mind can no longer escape. Before we continue with what happened next, please take a necessary moment to subscribe and help this channel continue to grow. If this story is hitting you somewhere deep, if it resonates with the pain of regret, please hit that like button. Share this video with someone who might need to hear this harsh reminder. Drop a comment and tell me, have you ever realized too late what you were truly losing? Your engagement helps this channel reach more people who desperately need these emotional and ethical reminders. Now, let's continue with Damien's frantic efforts. The first thing Damien did was call her. 17 times in rapid succession. Each call went straight to a cold, automated voicemail. The next hour, he tried her home phone, the landline she rarely used. Disconnected. Her email bounced back. Asterisk, account closed. It was then, sitting in the blinding silence of his empty fortress, that Damien began to understand. This wasn't a melodramatic fight. This wasn't a desperate gesture meant to scare him into temporary change. This was an execution of a plan. Clean, precise, and utterly final. Elena had been planning this withdrawal for months, meticulously ensuring every escape route was secured. He drove to the bank that afternoon, Christmas Day, using his executive access to check their accounts remotely. The joint account they'd shared for nearly a decade was almost empty. She had withdrawn exactly her legal portion, nothing illegal, nothing he could contest. The prenuptial agreement they'd signed 9 years ago, which he had insisted upon, just business, he'd called the ultimate protection, was now the precise mechanism of her total escape. He opened his laptop and began the cold, systematic search through old emails, bank statements, any digital trace of her preparation. What he found made his highly disciplined stomach turn. 3 months ago, she transferred money to a new, unfamiliar account. Small, insignificant amounts that would never trigger his institutional alerts, but consistent, methodical savings. 2 months ago, she had quietly updated her professional portfolio website. Elena Chun, architectural consultant, available for remote contract work. She had formally reverted to her maiden name online. 6 weeks ago, she had canceled the twins' enrollment at Briarcliff Preparatory Academy, the elite school for which he paid staggering annual tuition. He had never noticed. 4 weeks ago, she had sold her car, the luxury SUV he bought her for their anniversary. Sold it privately, he discovered, and purchased something else entirely. He had no idea what, he'd never asked. 2 weeks ago, she had all their medical and school records transferred to digital copies for mobility. And where had Damien been during this final, massive organizational effort? He'd been in Barcelona with Sienna, pretending the trip was critical corporate business. Damien sat back. The evidence of his profound, criminal negligence spread before him like a horrifying autopsy report. She'd been saying goodbye for months, meticulously dismantling the life she hated. And he'd been too busy, too distracted, too convinced of his own unparalleled importance to see a single sign. His assistant, Marissa, called that evening apologetic. Mr. Archer, I am so sorry to bother you on Christmas, but I just received an email from a law firm Sullivan and Associates. They're requesting acknowledgement of receipt for documents they couriered to your home address. Do you want me to handle it? What documents? She paused. It says family law matter. Confidential. Send them to me. 20 minutes later, Damien was staring at documents detailing divorce papers, proposed custody arrangements, and highly specific financial separation agreements. The terms were shocking in their simplicity. Elena wanted absolutely nothing from him except her freedom. No alimony, no share of his company, no claim to the vast properties or assets acquired during the marriage. She wanted sole physical custody of Wyatt and Iris, with supervised visitation rights for Damien, to be negotiated through mediation. Supervised. As if he were a potential threat. As if he were a complete stranger to his own children. The devastating realization struck him with the force of ice water. To his children, he was exactly that. A stranger. He couldn't recall the last time he'd read them a story. He couldn't name their favorite food combination. He didn't know their teachers' names, had no idea what subjects they were learning in school, or what truly scared them at night. He'd provided every material necessity, every luxury, except himself. And now they were irrevocably gone. Damien spent the next 2 weeks in a haze of professional function and private desperation. He hired the best private investigator money could buy, Marcus Webb, a former FBI agent specializing in locating people who passionately did not want to be found. Marcus returned a week later with a somber assessment. Your wife is smart, Mr. Archer. Very smart. She paid cash for everything in the weeks before she left. No credit card trail. No digital footprint. She disabled location services on her phone before ditching it in a bus station bin. The car she bought, a used sedan, was purchased from a private seller, deliberately avoiding dealership records. But you can find her, Damien insisted, his voice tight. Marcus hesitated, leaning back in the expensive leather chair. I can try, but I have to ask you something first. If she went to this much trouble to disappear, maybe you should devote some of that famous CEO mind to thinking about why. Just find her. Give me 2 weeks. Those 2 weeks stretched out like 2 years. Damien went through the automatic motions at work. Board meetings, strategy sessions, conference calls. But his mind was elsewhere, circling the terrible emptiness of his house. His COO, Richard, pulled him aside after a disastrous presentation to investors. Damien, what is going on? That wasn't like you. You missed key metrics. Family matter, Damien choked out. Richard's expression softened momentarily. Is everything okay with Elena and the kids? Damien couldn't answer. At night, alone in the enormous, echoing house, he walked through rooms thick with absence. He found things Elena had left behind. Not forgotten, but left deliberately for him to discover. Her platinum wedding ring on the bathroom counter. Old photos of them from happier, pre-success years, face down in a drawer. Finally, he found a journal she'd kept, its pages filled with thoughts and pain she'd never shared with him. He read that journal. Every page. Every painful word. January 10th. Damien missed Wyatt's parent-teacher conference today. 3rd one this year. Wyatt asked me directly why Daddy doesn't care about his school. I didn't have an answer that wasn't a lie. March 22nd. Found a receipt in his jacket pocket. Dinner at Rouge. We haven't been there in years. The bill was clearly for 2. He told me he was working late on the merger deal. May 5th. Iris asked if Daddy still loves us. She is 6 years old. That is not a question a child should ever have to ask. July 18th. I don't recognize him anymore. Or maybe I am finally seeing him clearly without the lens of love blurring the view. He's chosen his life and we are simply not in it. September 3rd. I've started planning. I don't know exactly where we'll go yet, but I know we can't stay. For my sake, for the twins' sake, we deserve more than this cold acceptance. November 12th. I'm terrified, but I'm more scared of what staying here will teach my children about love, about worth, about what they should accept from the people who claim to care about them. The teaching ends now. December 15th. 10 more days. 10 more days and we are free. Damien closed the journal, his hands shaking violently. She'd been drowning right in front of him, reaching out for purchase, and he had never once bothered to look up from his phone. Marcus called on day 13 of the search. "I found them." Damien's heart literally stopped beating for a second. "Where?" "Before I tell you, Mr. Archer, you need to understand something vital. I am not giving you this information so you can show up and demand anything, or try to use legal force. I'm giving it to you so you can decide right now what kind of man you want to be moving forward. Because, as I see it, you have two distinct choices. You can show up, wielding your power, and try to force your way back into their lives. Or you can show up prepared to earn your way back. One of those might work. The other will destroy the tiny sliver of chance you have left." "Where are they, Marcus?" "Maplewood Ridge. Small coastal town, about 300 miles north of the city. She's renting a small blue house on Seabrook Lane. The twins are already enrolled in public school under her maiden name. She's working remotely as an architectural consultant." "Thank you, Mr. Archer. Be careful. You are walking into their new life. Do not make the same mistakes in it that you made in the old one." Damien hung up and immediately began the familiar CEO-level planning. He'd drive up there tomorrow. He'd explain, apologize. He would fix this immediately. But something, for the first time, stopped him. Marcus's words echoed relentlessly in his mind. Earn your way back. How did you possibly earn back 6 years of professional absence? How did you apologize for choosing ambition over presence? For valuing corporate acquisition over paternal attention? He didn't know. But he knew showing up unannounced, demanding forgiveness, treating his family like a business problem that could be solved with capital and cold strategy, that was absolutely not the answer. For the first time in his entire adult life, Damien Archer didn't have a strategy. He didn't have a definitive plan. He didn't have control. All he possessed was a deep, aching regret and the faint, desperate, humiliating hope that it wasn't too late to salvage the remnants of his soul. 3 long, difficult months passed before Damien went to Maplewood Ridge. 3 months consumed by therapy. Sitting in an anonymous office with Dr. Brennan, a woman who cared nothing for his net worth or his corporate accomplishments. She looked at him and saw exactly what he was. A man who had catastrophically failed at the only thing that truly mattered. "Why are you here, Damien?" she'd asked in their first session. "To fix my marriage." She'd shaken her head, unimpressed. "No, that's not why you're here. You're here to figure out why you broke it in the first place. Until you understand that foundational failure, nothing you attempt will ever matter." So he did the grueling, humbling work. Examining his choices, his deep-seated fear of vulnerability, his relentless need for external control and professional validation, the toxic way he had equated personal worth with accumulated wealth and success with public status. He ended things with Sienna finally and cleanly. Not dramatically, just honestly. "This was a profound mistake. I was a mistake. I'm truly sorry for wasting your time." She'd simply shrugged, applying lipstick in the mirror. "You didn't waste anything, Damien. We both got exactly what we wanted, or at least what we thought we wanted when we walked in the door." He stepped back from the day-to-day operations of the company, promoting Richard to acting CEO. It shocked the board. It stunned the industry. Damien didn't care anymore. When he finally drove to Maplewood Ridge on a cold, damp afternoon in March, it wasn't with demands or expectations of reconciliation. It was with nothing but a desperate, bone-deep need to see his children, to see Elena, to try, however futilely, to begin the long, agonizing process of making amends. The town was small, intensely quiet, the kind of place where everyone knew their neighbors, and traffic meant 3 cars waiting patiently at a stop sign. He found Seabrook Lane easily, a narrow street lined with modest, single-story homes weathered by the constant presence of salt air and time. The house was a pale blue cottage, small, cozy, with a tiny front yard. Leaning casually against the porch were 2 brightly colored bicycles. His children's bicycles. Damien sat in his enormous, isolating black sedan, his hands gripping the steering wheel, and watched. He settled his focus on the blue bungalow, observing. The front door cracked open, and then Iris burst out, a flash of motion, her school backpack a blur of color bouncing against her back. She was laughing. A genuine, unrestrained sound that hit him with unexpected force. She was taller, her hair falling past her shoulders. She looked utterly, undeniably happy. Wyatt trailed her, slower, always the more measured one. But his face held a gentle smile too. And then Elena emerged, dressed in ordinary jeans and a comfortable, practical sweater, her hair pulled back in a simple style. She looked different, yes, but more importantly, she looked lighter, free, shedding years of tension he hadn't even realized she was carrying. She spoke briefly to the twins, her demeanor calm and purposeful, and they scrambled into a modest sedan. A simple, practical model, the kind that signified stability over statement. Not the opulent, black SUV he had insisted on buying her years ago. This car was anonymous, functional, and entirely hers. They drove past him, lost in their own world. Damon maintained a careful, almost paranoid distance as he followed them toward the coastline. They stopped near the water, at a wide, public beach park. He parked far away, beneath the shelter of some old oaks, and watched as Elena and the twins walked along the sand, collecting shells and running from the foam of the incoming waves. They looked complete, a unit unto themselves, utterly whole, like they had never needed him in the first place. And maybe they didn't, but the raw, visceral truth was that he desperately needed them. He waited until the sun began to sink below the horizon, painting the sky in colors of rose and violet. He waited until they had returned home and the interior lights glowed warm and inviting inside the small blue house. Only then did he walk the short distance to the front door and knock. When Elena answered, her features went through a rapid, disquieting series of changes. Surprise, then instant recognition, then a hardening that was colder than any winter chill. Damien. Hello, Elena. Her stance remained rigid. She didn't move aside, blocking the threshold. How did you find us? We were very careful. Does it really matter how? A muscle tightened in her jaw. Yes, it matters. Because I was explicit. I asked you, begged you not to search for us. We needed peace. I needed to see them. I needed to see you. Mommy? Iris appeared behind her mother, her face tilted with curious innocence. Then her eyes widened instantly. Daddy! Wyatt appeared beside her, his expression more guarded, instantly defensive. Hi, sweetheart. Damien managed, his voice cracking painfully on the single word. Hi, Wyatt. What are you doing here? Wyatt asked the question without malice, just simple, devastating honesty. I came to see you, to apologize. Elena placed a hand on the shoulder of each child, her touch firm and protective. Kids, go inside. I need to talk to your father. But, Mom, Iris started to protest. Inside, please. They obeyed reluctantly, casting backward glances, their figures small and hesitant before they vanished into the warmth of the house. Elena stepped onto the porch, pulling the door shut behind her, creating an undeniable barrier. She crossed her arms, the gesture radiating confrontation. You had no right to come here. I know. You had no right to invade the life we've built. I know. Then why are you here, Damien? He looked at her, really looked at her, at the woman he had promised forever to, the woman he had carelessly neglected, the priceless treasure he had lost. Because I was wrong. Because I destroyed the single most important thing in my life. Because I spent 6 years chasing empty status and hollow things that don't matter and ignoring the only things that truly do. Because I can't undo what I did. But I need you to know that I see it now. I see what I lost. I see what I threw away. And I'm not here to ask you to take me back. I'm here to ask if there's any way, any sliver of possibility, that I could be part of their lives again, even a small supporting part. Because they deserve a father. And I want to try to be one. If you've stayed with me this far, you're already one of us. Subscribe now so you don't miss what happens next. Because stories like this deserve to be heard all the way through. Drop a comment and tell me what raw emotion this story is making you feel. Your support keeps these powerful, impactful stories coming. Now let's see what Elena said. Elena stared at him for a long, agonizing moment. Her eyes glistened, shimmering with unshed tears, but her voice remained steady, a weapon of controlled pain. Do you know what the hardest part was, Damien? It wasn't the exhausting loneliness. It wasn't rebuilding a life from ash and raising them without any help. It was the waiting, Damien. It was watching them believe you would suddenly remember them. Watching Wyatt, small and hopeful, sitting by the front window on his 8th birthday, convinced you would finally show up, even after you'd canceled 3 times that week. It was finding the crumpled Father's Day cards Iris had colored at school, hidden deep beneath her mattress because she couldn't bear to throw them away, but had no one to give them to. Damien's throat closed completely, seizing with shame and regret. I am so profoundly sorry. Sorry doesn't give them back the years you willfully missed. I know, but maybe I can be there for the years ahead. If you'll let me. Elena wiped a tear away fiercely, an angry, dismissive gesture. You don't get to just show up and expect everything to be fine. You don't get to waltz back into their lives just because you finally feel the weight of your own guilt. I don't expect anything. I'm asking. I'm begging. Let me try. She looked back at the house, at the comforting golden light glowing through the living room windows. They are happy here, Damien. For the first time in years, they are not asking me why their father doesn't love them. They are not wondering what they did wrong to deserve your abandonment. They're just happy. I won't take that away. I swear I won't. I just want a chance to show them that they didn't do anything wrong, that the mistake was mine entirely, that they deserve better, and that I want to try to be better. Elena remained silent for an extended period, weighing his plea against years of hurt. If I let you into their lives, it is strictly on my terms. You do not get to show up when it's convenient for your schedule and disappear when it's not. You don't get to make any more empty promises you won't keep. You do not get to hurt them again. I won't. Because if you do, Damien, if you hurt them even one more time, you will never see them again. Do you understand the permanence of that consequence? I understand. She took a deep, fortifying breath. Supervised visits. Once a week. Here, in this space where they feel safe. You will show up on time. You will stay as long as they want you to stay, not as long as your schedule dictates. And you will earn their trust back slowly, painstakingly, exactly the way it should be earned. Thank you. Don't thank me. Thank them. They're the ones who still ask if you were ever coming back. Despite everything you did, they still hold on to the idea of their father. Damien's vision blurred with unshed tears. Can I see them? Just for a moment? Elena hesitated, then gave a curt nod. 5 minutes. That's all you get. She opened the door just enough and called inside, her voice clear. Wyatt, Iris, your father would like to say hello quickly. They appeared slowly, their small bodies radiating caution and hesitation. Damien knelt down, bringing himself physically to their level, trying to erase the years of distance. Hi. I know I haven't been around. I know I've made a lot of terrible mistakes, but I want you to know one thing clearly. It was never because of you. It was because of me. Because I didn't understand what was important in life. And I'm so sorry. Iris looked quickly at Elena, seeking confirmation, then back at Damien. Are you staying now? The innocent, hopeful question shattered his remaining composure. I'm going to try. If your mom says it's okay, I'd like to visit, to spend time with you, to get to know you again. Wyatt's expression was unreadable, a mask of skeptical maturity. You missed my soccer championship. We won. Damien swallowed against the lump in his throat. I'm so incredibly proud of you. I'm sorry I wasn't there. Mom was there. She's always there. I know. She's amazing. Elena's expression softened, almost imperceptibly, for the first time that night. Why'd you leave? Iris asked quietly. It was the question Damien had been dreading. The core truth for which he had no good answer, only weak excuses. I made bad choices, sweetheart. I thought my work, my business, was more important than my family. I was wrong about everything. Do you love us? The question pierced him more profoundly than any rejection could have. Then why weren't you here? Out of the mouths of children came the most devastating, unadulterated truths. Because I didn't understand what love meant. I thought love was providing things, money, a big house, expensive stuff. But I didn't understand that real love is being there, being present, showing up. And I'm learning that now. I know it's late. I know I can't go back in time, but I want to do better if you'll give me a chance to try. Iris looked at Wyatt, a silent, complicated sibling communication passing between them in an instant. Okay, Iris said finally, her voice small but firm. But you have to actually come. Not just say you will. I will. I promise you I will. Wyatt remained skeptical, cautious. We'll see. Fair enough. Elena cleared her throat softly. All right. It's getting late. Say good night. Good night, Daddy, Iris said tentatively, using the old, familiar term. Good night, sweetheart. Wyatt merely nodded, his eyes fixed on Damien for another moment before he turned and disappeared back inside. Damien stood slowly, every part of him aching with the potent mixture of loss and fragile hope tangled together. Thank you, Elena. She met his gaze, the hardness returning to her eyes. Don't make me regret this. I won't. She started to close the door, but paused just before the latch clicked. Damien, that woman. Is she completely over? Completely out of your life? Yes, completely. Good. The door closed softly, finally and firmly, marking an end and a difficult beginning. Damon walked back to his car, his heart hammering against his ribs, his hands shaking slightly on the keys. He'd been given a chance, a small, fragile, entirely undeserved chance, and he knew, with a certainty that settled deep in his soul, that he would not waste it this time. The next 6 months were the hardest, most humbling, and most important months of Damien's life. He relocated his primary residence, not moving back, but moving closer. Every single Saturday, he made the 300-mile pilgrimage to Maplewood Ridge. For 6 months, through scorching summers and early autumn rains, he was there. 2 hours of carefully supervised interaction with Wyatt and Iris, all under Elena's watchful, unrelenting eye. The early sessions were excruciating. Stilted conversations, long, echoing silences, the twins relentlessly testing him, waiting for the inevitable moment when the old Damien would disappoint them again. But the old Damien never arrived. He simply showed up, every single week. He was meticulous. He learned their favorite foods. Wyatt loved pepperoni pizza but hated mushrooms with a passion. Iris would eat anything that contained chocolate. He learned their fears. Wyatt was afraid of thunderstorms that rattled the window panes. Iris was afraid of the dark, requiring a specific nightlight. He learned their dreams. Wyatt wanted to be a marine biologist and save the whales. Iris wanted to be a recognized artist. He sat through tedious soccer games on muddy sidelines, attended school plays, and stood awkwardly at art shows, cheering enthusiastically. He was no longer the stranger, but he was not yet fully Dad. Elena watched it all with a guarded, critical hope that slowly began to thaw. One evening, after a particularly good visit, a day when they had built sandcastles, and Iris had actually given him a small, hesitant hug goodbye, Elena walked him out to his car. "You're doing better than I expected," she admitted, the words tasting like gravel to her. "I'm trying. I can see that." They stood in the quiet driveway, the rhythmic, distant sound of waves serving as a backdrop to their heavy conversation. Did you truly love her?" Elena asked quietly, finally giving voice to the buried question. Damien shook his head instantly, violently. "No, I didn't even like her, not really. She was just an escape from my responsibility, an escape from reality, an escape from myself." "That's almost worse," she stated flatly. "I know, and I accept that." Elena looked up at the first stars beginning to appear in the darkening twilight sky. "I loved you so much, Damien. I gave up everything for our family, and in return you gave up nothing for us. I know, and I'll regret that imbalance for the rest of my life. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't left? Every day. But I think I would have lost you anyway, just slower and much more painfully for all of us." She nodded sadly. "You would have. Can I ask you something?" "Go ahead. Is there any chance for us?" Elena's expression was sad but absolutely clear, edged with finality. No, Damien. That part of our story is over, finished. I am not the woman who waited for you anymore. I'm not the woman who made weak excuses for your behavior or sacrificed myself hoping you would notice me. I am someone different now, someone who finally understands her own intrinsic worth. I understand. But, she continued, her voice softening marginally, there's a chance for you and the kids. If you keep showing up, if you keep trying, they might, eventually, forgive you. What about you? Have you forgiven me? She smiled faintly, a ghost of the woman he married. I already have. But forgiveness isn't the same thing as reconciliation. I've forgiven you so that I can move on. And moving on means moving forward, not backward. You're seeing someone, Damien said, the statement ringing with the clarity of sudden realization. Elena didn't deny it, the knowledge settling over him like a cold stone. His name is Thomas. He's a teacher at the twins' school. He's kind. He's present. He's steady. Do they like him? They do. It hurt. A deep, searing, earned pain. I'm happy for you, he said. And for the first time, he realized he genuinely meant it. 1 year after that devastating Christmas morning, Damon sat in Elena's cozy living room, watching Wyatt and Iris joyfully decorate a small, modest Christmas tree. It was nothing like the enormous, designer-curated tree that had stood cold and magnificent in the Briarcliff Heights mansion. But this tree mattered. Thomas was there, too. A quiet man with gentle, warm eyes who clearly adored Elena and treated the twins with genuine, unwavering care. Damon watched him effortlessly help Iris reach the highest branches. Watched him laugh naturally at Wyatt's earnest jokes. Watched him lean down and softly kiss Elena's temple as he handed her a delicate glass ornament. It should have been him standing in that light, fulfilling that role. But it wasn't. And that was his fault, his consequence. Hey, Dad, Iris called out. Dad. Not Damien. Not Daddy. But Dad, a title earned through sheer consistency. Dad, can you hand me the star? Damien's throat tightened almost painfully. Of course, sweetheart. He handed her the golden star, watching as she placed it carefully and perfectly at the very top of the small fir. Perfect, Elena said, smiling fully at her children. The four of them stood back, admiring their collaborative work. Damien didn't belong here, not really. He was a visitor in their established life. A guest, not a member of the core family unit. But he was here and they had allowed him in the doorway. That was significantly more than he deserved. As he prepared to leave that evening, Wyatt approached him, hanging back by the doorway. Dad, are you going to keep coming? Every week, buddy. As long as you want me to. Wyatt nodded. A brief, serious gesture. Okay, that's good. It was the closest thing to complete acceptance Damien had yet received. And it meant absolutely everything. Before we finish this story, I need you to hear something crucial. If you've been watching this entire narrative, if this story has moved you or challenged your preconceptions, or if it has simply made you think about your own life's priorities, please don't just scroll away. Subscribe to Mr. Stephen's Stories. Hit that notification bell aggressively. Share this video immediately with someone who needs this profound wake-up call. Leave a comment below and tell me what specific moment hit you the hardest. Your engagement, your consistent support. It is the fuel that allows this channel to keep sharing stories that matter, stories that remind us of what it means to be truly human. Now, let me tell you what happened next. 2 years after Elena walked away and began their new life, Damon sat in Dr. Brennan's office for what would be their final, culminating session. How are you feeling today? She asked, pen poised. Honest answer? Sad, grateful, changed. Tell me about each of those sentiments. Sad because I lost my family, my marriage, and years of their childhood that I'll never, ever get back. Grateful because they're letting me be part of their lives now, even in this small, peripheral way. Changed because I finally understand what truly matters, which is simply being there. Not just physically present, but emotionally present. Showing up isn't about grand, expensive gestures or flashy gifts. It's about consistency, presence, and paying dedicated attention to the people you claim to love. Dr. Brennan smiled, a genuine expression of approval. That, Damien, is true growth. It's too late, though, isn't it? Too late for what? To have what I had. You never really had it in the first place. You had the illusion of it. Now, you have the opportunity to build something real. It won't look like the perfect picture you lost, but it might be something better, something honest. Damon left that final session and drove immediately to Maplewood Ridge. He'd moved closer 6 months prior, buying a small, unpretentious apartment 30 minutes away, so he wouldn't miss the weekly visits. So he'd be nearby if the twins needed anything in an emergency. That evening, he attended Iris's art show at school. Her vibrant, expressive paintings lined the classroom walls. One piece caught his attention immediately, a family portrait, but distinctly different from the one she'd drawn years ago. This one clearly showed Elena, Thomas, Wyatt, Iris, and, in the corner, slightly separate but still connected by a single, thin line of paint, a figure labeled Dad. Not in the center, but decisively not excluded either. It was the stark, painful truth of his life now, and he accepted it fully. After the show, he took the twins for ice cream, having secured Elena's explicit permission. They sat in a small, brightly lit shop, talking about school projects and friends and nothing important, which meant, of course, everything important. Dad, Wyatt said suddenly, breaking the easy silence. I'm glad you kept coming back. Me too, buddy. I didn't actually think you would. I know. I'm sorry I gave you every reason to doubt me. Iris licked her chocolate cone thoughtfully, considering his words. Mom says people can change if they really want to. Do you believe that? I think so. You're different now. How am I different? You listen more. You're here more. You're more like a dad. It was the greatest, most hard-won compliment Damien had ever received. That night, as he dropped them off at the Blue House, Elena met him at the door alone. They're talking about spending a weekend with you, she said, her voice neutral, unsupervised. Damien's heart leaped within his chest. Really? If you want. In a few months we'll do a trial run one night. See how it goes. I would absolutely love that. Thank you, Elena. She studied him for a long, silent moment, searching his eyes. You really have changed, haven't you? I'm trying every single day. She nodded slowly. That's all any of us can do in the end. 3 years after the worst Christmas of his life, Damien stood on a windswept beach in Maplewood Ridge watching Wyatt and Iris play in the outgoing waves. They were 9 now, growing up with astonishing speed. He'd missed their earliest years, their first steps, their first words, the terrifying first days of school. But he was here now, reliably, for the soccer games and the art shows, for the skinned knees and the bad dreams, for the ordinary, sacred moments that built a life. His company had continued to thrive without him at the helm. He still consulted, still sat on the board, but his career no longer defined him. His children did. Elena approached, Thomas quietly at her side. They're happy, she observed softly. They are. So are you, I think. Damien smiled, a genuine expression. Getting there. Thomas extended his hand, meeting Damien's gaze honestly. Thank you for being good to them. I know it's not easy sharing their lives. Damien shook his hand firmly. Thank you for being good to them. For being what I wasn't. You're being it now, Thomas said simply. That's what matters most. Later, as the sun set entirely and they packed up their beach chairs to leave, Iris ran to Damien and wrapped her small arms tightly around his waist. I love you, Dad. 3 words. Simple. Profound. Completely undeserved. I love you too, sweetheart. So much. Wyatt joined the embrace, less demonstrative, but undeniably present. In that powerful moment, holding his children close as the waves crashed behind them, Damien finally understood something fundamental. He'd spent years building a towering empire, accumulating absurd wealth, chasing an endless definition of success. And he had felt empty. Now he had less money, less power, less prestige. But he had this exact moment, this visceral connection, this unconditional love, and it was truly everything. The moral of this story isn't complicated, but it is one we forget almost every single day. Success means nothing, is utterly hollow, if the people you love aren't standing there to share it with you. Presence is, ultimately, the greatest present you can give. Your children will not remember how many zeros were in your salary or what impressive title you held. They will remember if you were reliably there. Damien Archer built a billion-dollar empire, yet he couldn't afford the actual cost of his choices. He exchanged one Christmas with the wrong person for the possibility of every future Christmas with the right ones. We must ask ourselves, are you, right now, making decisions that will require you to spend the rest of your life attempting to apologize for? Because time is the currency you cannot earn back. Your children will not pause their growth while you chase professional accolades. Your spouse will not wait forever while you prioritize everything else in the universe. The people you take for granted today might not be there tomorrow. And when they are gone, no amount of money will ever bring them back. Before you go, I need you to do something essential. If this story moved you, if it challenged you, if it made you think deeply about your own life and priorities, subscribe to Mr. Steven's Stories right now. Like this video. Share it with someone specific who needs this wake-up call urgently. Comment below and tell me what you learned, what you felt, or what you are going to change starting today. This channel exists to bring you stories that matter. Stories with morals. Stories that remind us what it means to be human and connect. Your support helps us grow and reach more people who desperately need these messages. Remember, you cannot buy back what you willingly throw away. So hold tight to what matters most. Show up for the people you love, and never, ever take for granted the family that is waiting for you to simply come home. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next story.